That's right, Meredith, we don't.
Well, John Hofmeister is former president and CEO of U.S. operations for the Shell Oil Company. He's author of Why We Hate the Oil Companies. Thank you so much, Mr. Hofmeister. John, you've been on the show before, and I've learned to really trust your independence on this regard. Why won't BP tell us how much is coming out? Can't they look at it as engineers, skilled engineers, and just with eyesight detect the volume of flow?
I think they could if it was a priority for them, Chris, but I think I had it from very early on from BP that they are really leaving the decision to NOAA. NOAA has the scientists and they have the capability to measure this, and really that is a role of government. Ultimately, BP pays by the barrel, so they would have the incentive to do it themselves if they wanted to lowball it, but they basically left it to NOAA, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, to make that determination, as I understand it.
And therefore, they're hoping that NOAA, the part of Commerce Department, will come in lower than they would, and therefore they can always go with the lowest, and if they're not low enough, they'll come in with a counter low, right? It seems to me they're playing the odds here. They're saying if NOAA comes in low, they'll go with that number. If they think they can get it lower, they'll come in later low. It's always in their interest to keep their cards down.
Well, you could argue that. I think what the problem is, we got two problems going on simultaneously. One is if the well was properly designed and if the cement in the well held, then about the only oil that should come out of the reservoir is a 7-inch wide pipe. I frankly think that the oil is also burst through the cement and is coming up the casing, which is a much wider surface for the oil, a much greater volume, and I think that's what's happening. The second thing is we don't know what the velocity is of the pressure in the well, and I think that pressure in the well is really very strong, which drives a heck of a lot of oil out of that well.
How long could that continue if it's not stopped by nature? How long would it go?
You know, nature is a strange thing, and the highest volume of oil coming out of a reservoir is in the first instance. It's in the first days and weeks. Normally, the pressure of the earth begins to equalize, calm down, and there could be less oil coming out through natural pressure. But this could be, I don't know how big this reservoir is, and I don't know what the original pressure was, but I think that we could count on this oil coming out until they close it down. And the sooner they close it down, as we know, the better.
What is it with BP? Why do they keep putting out what turn out to be not true statements? They'll say things like, Tony Hayward, the CEO, will say things like, the oil's on the surface, there aren't any plumes underwater. He'll say things like, I don't hear anyone faulting us on our response. What do you mean? Everyone's faulting you. I think the environmental impact of this disaster is likely to be very, very modest. What is it? This is idiot talk, and he's not an idiot. Why does he keep making these statements like it's a small problem, there's nothing below the surface, all contradicted by expert opinion and expert surveying? Why does he keep doing this?
I think the best policy, Chris, honesty from the beginning. Just lay it out there. How bad is it? Just say it, because we're going to find out how bad it is to begin with. If there are plumes under the water, let's acknowledge there are plumes. I don't know that there is any value, unless they're getting advice from attorneys somewhere, to try to position themselves for some future hearing, some future court date, where they can stand on some other statement. The reality is, truth is always the best policy.
But, you know, when you're a kid, your parents tell you if you're in a traffic accident, the police officers there or the other parties involved, you don't talk because you don't want that used against you in court. I don't know if you were told that. I was. Is that what they're obeying, that basic sense of don't talk, whatever you say will be used against you in litigation, and they're afraid to give away that stuff?
Well, exactly, and I think when you have the Attorney General down there visibly launching a criminal investigation, you have just changed the temper of the conversation that's going to take place. So you put the company into a position of having to say things that it may help defend itself later on, when in fact if they wanted to be honest, what they say can be held against them in a court of law.
Couple points. First of all, why hasn't the President of the United States called on all the oil companies? We had a professor from LSU, Mr. Overton, Professor Overton last night, who said that you should have all the companies in the world with all their facilities, all their resources, their tankers, get out there and start skimming whatever they can to try to get this oil out of the water. Then they also, now it's just a BP operation, it seems. What do you think? What's going on?
Well,
why isn't everybody involved in this? If a fire alarm goes off, all the neighboring communities come in, and that's when you have a big 5-alarm fire. All the other towns send their fire trucks. Why do we just have BP here? And that's why I don't buy this theory. What's good for BP is good for America here. I think we have a bigger interest in this than in some company that's probably going to go broke someday. Your thoughts?
I've been faulting the government response. The government runs the ocean. This is the Coast Guard's responsibility. It's the government's responsibility to figure out how to manage our real estate, whether it's oceanic or onshore. BP is basically being told what to do. For the last 5 weeks, there have been some of us who have been articulating just what you said. Get some big super tankers out there with their big pumps, their vast distances that they could cover. Get a cooperative effort coming from multiple companies, whether it's shipping companies, whether it's other oil companies. Buy out the oil that's sitting in storage, but get those tankers on the water. Set up barges, lines of barges in front of precious marshes, and you could have put pumps on the barges to suck the oil out of the water. The booms don't work. Everybody can see the booms don't work, but yet we're being told by the government that they're working. I mean, you have to be really, believing and not trusting your eyes to see that it's not working. But the government and BP don't want to acknowledge that what's not working is not working. I think we need a paradigm change, Chris.
Right. I think he needs to think outside the box, and the box is called BP. And I keep thinking of my hero, Winston Churchill, at the time of Dunkirk, with the British Expeditionary Force stuck on the continent. And he said, I'm not relying on the British Navy anymore. As great as it is, I'm calling on everyone with a boat. Get out there and get some soldiers and bring the boys home. And that's what saved the British Army. The Expeditionary Force was saved because everybody chipped in. And the president or the prime minister has to think bigger than BP, because Tony Hayward is not a big thinker. Anyway, thank you, Mr. Hofmeister, for joining us so much tonight. Joining me right now is Mike Papanantonio.